Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into one of the strangest places you've ever visited. Your own mind. Right now, as you listen, your brain is quietly doing something incredible. Behind your closed eyes, or even when you're staring at the ceiling, there's a kind of secret movie playing. It's not quite a memory, and it's not exactly imagination either. It's somewhere in between. Soft images, strange colors, drifting faces, maybe little flashes of things you didn't even know you remembered. Welcome to the inner cinema. What's wild is that this happens constantly. Even when you're not paying attention, your brain's projector hums softly in the background, spitting out tiny visual sparks. Scientists actually have a name for it, the mind's eye. And you're the sleepy explorer, curled up under blankets, about to go wandering through the strangest movie theater in existence. No popcorn, no previews. Just weird, beautiful silent films made by you. For you now, you're probably not going to survive this next part, not because it's dangerous, but because, well, you might just drift off mid-sentence. And honestly, that's kind of the point, isn't it? So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like and subscribe to the video. But only if you really enjoy what I'm doing here. It helps a lot. And tell me in the comments, where are you listening from? And what time is it where you are? I love seeing those sleepy little check-ins from around the world. Now dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background. And let's start our journey together tonight. Let's talk about that little movie theater behind your eyes, the one that's been playing trailers your whole life. Your brain is constantly busy with images. Even when you don't notice, there's a strange hum of unfinished pictures floating behind your thoughts. The colors don't always make sense. Sometimes it's flashes of faces. Sometimes whole dreamlike scenes. Sometimes it's just colors, swirling softly, like liquid ink dropped into water. But here's the wild thing. Those images aren't random. Your brain is working overtime to keep you entertained, even when you don't ask for it. Scientists have studied this using machines like fMR, that can watch your brain light up as you imagine things. And guess what? The very same parts of your brain that light up when you see things with your eyes also light up when you just imagine them. Think about that for a second. Your brain doesn't totally know the difference between real vision and imagined vision. That means when you're lying in bed and thinking of a soft beach or drifting clouds, you're kind of seeing it, in a way. Just not with your eyes, with your cortex. And speaking of cortex, let's talk about that for a moment. The part of your brain that handles vision is way in the back, in a region called the occipital lobe. It's like having a giant cinema screen in the back of your head, glowing quietly, waiting for instructions. When your eyes are open, the occipital lobe gets flooded with electrical signals from your optic nerve. Close your eyes, and that screen goes dark, but your brain hates leaving it empty. So instead, it starts painting from memory, or it pulls up little pieces of old scenes you've seen, stitching them together into something new. Ever notice how sometimes, right before sleep, you'll suddenly remember a completely random face from 10 years ago? Maybe a bus driver, maybe someone you saw once at a store. Your brain just pulls it up, like a clumsy librarian dropping a random photo album on your desk. No explanation. Just here, thought you might want this. Now, scientists have been studying this for decades, and there's still debate about why the brain does it. Is it just a random filing system being weird at bedtime? Is it a way to organize memories while you sleep? Or is it the early stages of dreaming starting to roll before you fully drifted off? No one knows for sure. And honestly, I love that. I love that even with all our machines, all our tests, all our neuroscience, there are still parts of our own minds that feel like soft mysteries, floating just out of reach. Here's one of my favorite weird facts about mental imagery. Not everyone experiences it the same way. There's even a condition called aphantasia, where people don't have a mind's eye at all. They literally can't form visual images in their head. If I tell you to imagine a pink elephant, you might get a goofy cartoon flash behind your eyes. But for someone with aphantasia, just nothing. Blank words, but no pictures. And they're often totally surprised to learn that other people do see pictures in their heads. It's kind of amazing, isn't it? We're all walking around in these bodies, living in the same world, breathing the same air, but our inner worlds? Completely different. Some people have vivid inner movies playing all the time. Some people have zero. And most of us are somewhere in the middle, with hazy, shifting pictures popping up at random. But the really strange part is this. No matter how clear or blurry your inner movie feels, it's all yours. No one else can visit it. No one else knows exactly what you see when I say ocean or mountain or old library with soft yellow lamps. Your brain is like a private art gallery, and you're the only one with the key. And here's something fun to fall asleep to. Right now, somewhere else in the world, someone else is drifting off to sleep, imagining something totally different. Maybe forests, maybe neon lights, maybe nothing at all. But all of us are walking around with tiny, private cinemas playing weird little films, 24 hours a day. Not bad for a species that still can't agree on how to load a dishwasher properly. Now that you know about your brain's secret cinema, let's talk about where the pictures come from. Because these drifting, colorful little movies aren't just randomly generated. They're built from something. They're built from you. More specifically, from your memories. See, your brain is a collector. It's been scooping up images ever since you opened your eyes for the first time as a newborn. Shapes, colors, faces, places, even smells and sounds, all of it gets bundled together in this enormous archive that you barely know exists. And the strangest part? You don't control it. You don't get to decide which memories your brain decides to save. And you definitely don't get to choose which ones will pop up at bedtime when you're just trying to relax. Here's the thing, though, memory is weird. Your brain doesn't store memories like perfect video recordings. It's more like an impressionist painting. Just the major shapes, a blur of colors, and the emotional tone of the moment. So when your brain pulls up images for your inner cinema, it's working with impressions, not photographs. That's why you might suddenly remember someone's hat, but not their face. Or you might remember the feeling of standing on a beach, but the ocean in your mind might be the wrong color. Your brain's like an artist working with old, slightly damaged reference photos, filling in the gaps as best it can. Here's a fun mainstream fact. Your brain's visual memory system is massive. It's one of the most powerful parts of your entire mental machinery. Studies show that we can remember thousands of individual images with surprising clarity, even ones we only glanced at for a second or two. Your brain basically hoards pictures like a digital camera with infinite storage. And it gets stranger. Even when you think you've forgotten something, that memory might still be hiding back there. Ever had that moment where you suddenly remember the layout of a childhood bedroom? Or the exact shade of the curtains in a room you haven't seen in decades? Your brain didn't lose that image. It just filed it somewhere weird, like a receipt stuffed in the back of a drawer. And then suddenly, without warning, it drops. That memory back into your head, like a magician pulling a rabbit out of a hat. But here's where it gets weird in the best possible way. Your imagination doesn't just replay old pictures. It remixes them. It takes that curtain from childhood and sticks it in a cafe you visited last week. It takes your high school teacher's voice and assigns it to a completely unrelated stranger. In a dream. And it feels real while it's happening. That's because your brain's image generation system is directly connected to your emotional centers. And emotions? They don't care about timelines. They care about feelings. That's why a completely nonsensical dream can still leave you feeling embarrassed or happy or nervous, even if nothing in the dream made sense at all. Want something fringe? There's a fascinating theory in neuroscience that dreams might actually help your brain process emotions by running weird little simulations at night. It's like your mind is workshopping scenes, testing out how you might feel about different situations, even if they're ridiculous. Ever dreamed about your teeth falling out? Congratulations. You've just been part of an emotional dress rehearsal, courtesy of your subconscious. Of course, not all scientists agree on that theory. There's still a lot of debate about what dreams really are. Are they just random electrical noise? Are they secret emotional messages? Are they your brain taking out the trash? No one knows for sure. But I kind of like the mystery of it. Here's a cool argument you can drop at your next sleepover. Some researchers think that visual imagination evolved as a survival tool. Picture this. You're an early human, wandering through the forest. You hear a strange rustle behind the trees. Before you even see the animal, your brain is already imagining what it might be. Saber-toothed tiger? Another human? Just the wind? That quick visual guess could save your life. So over thousands of generations, humans got better and better at imagining things that weren't there yet because it made us faster at reacting to danger. Pretty neat, right? Your ability to daydream about weird castles or glowing jellyfish floating in space. It all started with ancient humans needing to not get eaten by bears. Evolution is practical like that, but there's also something beautifully useless about it too. You don't have to imagine glowing jellyfish. You don't have to picture pink clouds drifting over glass oceans. And yet, you do. Just because your brain can. That's art. That's humanity. That's you, lying here right now, half listening to this, half floating through your own inner gallery of strange, lovely pictures. And here's the part I love most. No one else will ever see your inner cinema the way you do. Even if you tried. To describe it, it would come out all tangled and incomplete. But that doesn't matter. Because you're not imagining these things to show anyone else. You're imagining them because your brain likes to dot. It's like a secret game it plays with itself while you drift off. Safe under blankets, listening to soft words curling through the quiet. Next time your brain throws a random memory at you. School hallway, a friend's sweater, a weird bus ride. Just smile and let it happen. It's not supposed to make sense. It's supposed to feel. That's how you know the projector's working. Now that we know your brain pulls images from this strange, cluttered attic of memories, let's talk about why some of those imagined scenes feel so real. It's not just about visuals. Your brain doesn't operate like a camera, it works more like a movie director with a flair for drama. When you remember or imagine something, it doesn't just give you a flat picture, it gives you an experience. You get emotions, sounds, little snippets of imagined dialogue, maybe even textures or smells if your brain's feeling extra generous that night. This is why daydreams often sneak up on you in the middle of doing something boring. Washing dishes? Suddenly, you're in a quiet bookstore from 10 years ago, or on some balcony overlooking a weird city you just invented on the spot. That scene, that little mental vacation, feels like something you might have lived, even though you know perfectly. Well, you didn't. And here's the kicker. Your brain loves mixing emotions into these little stories. That's why some daydreams turn into weird emotional loops. You ever catch yourself imagining some random argument you never actually had? Or picturing a conversation where you finally say that one clever thing you should have said 3 years ago? Yeah. Welcome to the director's cut of your life, playing exclusively in the theater behind your eyes. Mainstream fact time. Neuroscientists have studied this effect and found that when you imagine emotional scenes, parts of your brain that handle actual emotion light up along with the visual areas. In other words, if you're imagining a cozy winter cabin with a warm fire, your brain doesn't just see it feels the comfort too. That's why sometimes imagining being in your favorite place can actually make you feel better. Connection is real, not just in your head. Well, okay, technically it is just in your head, but you know what I mean now. Here's a weird fringe fact. Some psychologists believe that certain types of anxiety might be linked to having too active of a visual imagination. Basically, your brain is so good at generating detailed what-if scenarios that it accidentally stresses you out. You can imagine so clearly how something might go wrong that your emotional system reacts as if it's happening for real. A mental movie's so good, it tricks the audience you. But don't worry, you're not alone. Pretty much everyone has moments like that. The trick is learning how to direct those mental movies in a better direction. Think of it like changing the playlist in your head. There's still debate about exactly how imagination works, by the way. Some researchers think it's just the brain's memory system playing around with spare parts. Others argue that it's a whole separate system, evolved specifically to help humans solve problems by running mental simulations if possible. Futures. Honestly, I don't care which one's right. Both explanations are kind of magical in their own way. Want a fun example of just how convincing these mental images can be? Close your eyes right now, go ahead, just for a second, and imagine biting into a lemon. Really picture it. The bright yellow skin, the weight of it in your hand, the sharp citrus smell. Now slice it open, and imagine the sour juice hitting your tongue. Bet you felt that little mouth-watering twinge, didn't you? That's not a trick. That's just your brain believing its own movie. What's wild is that your body actually reacts to imagined situations almost the same way it reacts to real ones. That's how visualization techniques work for athletes. Olympic sprinters don't just run on the track. They also run races in their minds, seeing every step before they even move. Studies show that imagining physical activity can actually activate parts of the motor cortex, a part of your brain that controls movement. You're basically doing mental push-ups every time you picture yourself running or jumping or dancing. Here's another strange one for you. Have you ever imagined a conversation with someone, complete with their voice and expressions, only to forget later whether it actually happened? That's because your brain's simulation game is too good. It builds whole scenes out of nothing but memories and emotions. And sometimes the line between imagined and real gets smudged. That's not you going crazy. That's just your brain doing what it does best, making stories out of scraps. And let's not forget the most mysterious players in this whole process. Those weird little flashes of completely random images. A carousel spinning. A hallway you've never been in. A sentence in someone else's handwriting that makes no sense. These little fragments drift by like ghost ships in the fog of your mind, coming and going with no explanation. Some scientists think these are just random neural noise leftover signals firing around. Others think they might be stray pieces of memory bubbling up from deep storage. I like to think of them as postcards from the deeper parts of yourself. Messages written in symbols only you might someday understand. And here's a nice sleepy thought before we keep going. When you drift into those little imagined places, you're not just wasting time. You're visiting the quiet corners of your own mind, places no one else can reach. Little hideouts built entirely out of memory, imagination, and feeling. Not bad for a species that still can't decide whether cereal is a soup. All right, now that we've opened the attic door to your memory and seen how it shapes your inner cinema, let's go deeper, because the rabbit hole gets stranger the further you follow it. Have you ever noticed that sometimes, when you close your eyes, it's not just pictures that appear? It's places, whole spaces, rooms you've never seen before, streets that don't exist, glowing landscapes that couldn't possibly be real. And yet, There they are, detailed and crisp, like someone slipped the whole map under your pillow while you weren't looking. What you're experiencing in those moments is called spatial imagery. Your brain doesn't just store pictures, it stores locations, layouts, shapes of rooms, angles of streets. It's why you can probably still imagine the floor plan of the house you grew up in, even if you haven't been there for years. You can walk those hallways in your mind, touch the doorknobs, remember exactly where that one annoying creaky floorboard used to be. It's also why you might suddenly remember a dream you had years ago, not because the dream meant anything, but because your brain logged the shape of it somewhere. You might not recall the plot, but you remember that weird staircase or that door with strange carvings. Your brain is weirdly good at hoarding imaginary architecture. Here's a mainstream fact. Studies show that people who are good at spatial tasks like solving mazes or reading maps tend to have stronger, more vivid mental imagery. And here's the wild part. This skill is tied to the same brain areas that handle actual physical navigation. That's right, your ability to mentally walk through imaginary castle is connected to the same machinery that helps you not get lost in IKEA. But now for the fringe. Some dream researchers believe that dreams might actually be your brain's way of testing spaces before you ever encounter them. Like trial runs. Have you ever dreamed of a house or a neighborhood before visiting somewhere similar? Maybe your brain was practicing, running low-res versions of possible places, getting ready to help you navigate them later. It's like your mind runs a video game beta test before releasing the full version in your waking life. Of course, not everyone agrees with that. Some neuroscientists argue that dream spaces are purely random, stitched together from memory fragments by accident. But I like the idea that there's a little mapmaker inside you, quietly drawing blueprints for future adventures. But let's get weirder. Have you ever experienced something called false memories? Like thinking you've been somewhere before, even though you haven't? Sometimes your brain gets so good at building imaginary spaces that it accidentally convinces you they're real. Psychologists call this confabulation, and while it can be unsettling, it's just your inner cinema getting carried away with its special effects department. And here's something I love. Even totally blind people, those who've never seen anything with their eyes, can have vivid spatial imagery. Their brains build maps of places based entirely on touch, sound, and memory. It's like the mind refuses to be limited by what the eyes can or can't do. Everyone gets a movie, even if the projector works differently. Let's take this a step further. Ever heard of lucid dreaming? It's when you realize, mid-dream, that you're dreaming, and then you can start editing the scenery. Experienced lucid dreamers often report being able to build entire cities in their sleep, adding staircases, rivers, even entire neighborhoods on a whim. Your inner cinema becomes a video game where you're both the player and the level designer. Honestly, that's kind of beautiful. Your brain isn't just a passive receiver of experience. It's a world builder. A quiet architect working late into the night, sketching bridges and towers, decorating forgotten attics, setting up weird little shops on dream streets you've never walked. Want to hear something deeply strange? There are records of people having recurring dreams about the same imaginary locations, year after year. Same streets, same buildings. Sometimes slightly changed, but unmistakably familiar. Why? No one knows. But I like to think of them as secret hideouts built by the subconscious. Safe places you return to, built entirely out of your own imagination. Here's a fun experiment for later. Next time you're drifting towards sleep, try deliberately building a room in your head. Start with one wall, then a window, maybe a table. It doesn't have to make sense. Just see what happens. You might be surprised how quickly your mind starts decorating for you, adding details you didn't consciously think of. It's like your imagination's been waiting for an invitation to show off. And next time someone tells you, you have a wild imagination, just smile and think, if only you knew, you are, after all, the architect of 100 rooms no one else will ever visit. The quiet explorer of your own impossible neighborhoods. The sleepy builder of staircases that lead nowhere and everywhere all at once. And isn't that exactly the kind of magic we need at bedtime? Let's drift a little deeper now, because your brain isn't done surprising you yet. We've explored pictures, places, feelings, and even those strange architectural daydreams that pop up like forgotten cities. But let's talk about something more mysterious. Sounds. Yep. Your brain's inner cinema is surround sound. It's wild when you think about it. You can be lying in bed, totally alone, and suddenly there is a voice. Not like a spooky ghost voice or anything, unless you're into that, but just someone's voice from your past. Or a phrase you haven't heard in years. Or maybe a little song from childhood suddenly playing in your head on repeat, like some old forgotten radio station cutting through the static. Here's the thing. You don't choose when this happens. Your brain is running its own secret playlist, uninvited, unplanned, and sometimes absolutely ridiculous. Ever had a kid's cartoon theme song pop into your head while doing something serious? Yeah, same. Your brain is like, taxes? Cool how? About the theme from DuckTales instead? But why does this happen? Mainstream fact time. The brain's auditory cortex, the part responsible for processing sounds, is highly active, even when there's no external noise. It can create imagined sounds just as vividly as it processes real ones. Studies with brain scans show that when you hear a song in your head, your brain lights up in the exact same regions as when you hear it with your ears. Basically, your brain's a DJ who won't take requests. And here's something fringe but fun. Some neuroscientists think that imagined sounds might be part of the brain's built-in rehearsal system. It's like practicing social interactions or rehearsing conversations, but instead of doing it out loud, you're doing it in your head with full audio included. Have you ever practiced what you'd say to someone in your mind, and you can hear their reply even though it hasn't happened yet? Yeah, that's rehearsal. That's your private sound studio at work. Want to get weirder? There are documented cases of people who can hear perfect musical notes in their heads. Like, they can hum a song they heard once 10 years ago and get every single note right. It's called eidetic musical memory, kind of like photographic memory, but for sound. Sadly, I didn't get that download, but someone out there did. And sometimes, it's not even songs or words, it's just sounds. The crunch of snow underfoot, the hum of a refrigerator from your grandmother's kitchen, a clock ticking, little sonic fingerprints from your personal history, drifting in like echoes from long ago. But it's not just nostalgia either. Brain is also fantastic at inventing sounds on the spot. Ever daydream about an imaginary world and suddenly hear the crowd cheering or the creak of ancient wooden stairs? Your mind's sound department has an entire library of effects ready to drop at a moment's notice. Move over, Hollywood. Of course, not all these imagined sounds are pleasant. Some people experience something called earworms, those songs that get stuck in your head and refuse to leave, looping like a broken record. And the weirdest part? The more you try to ignore them, the louder they seem to get. It's like your brain is saying, you will remember the second verse of that shampoo commercial. You will. Now for the academic argument. Scientists still debate whether our brains evolved this ability for communication or for creativity. Did we develop this internal soundtrack so we could plan conversations and improve survival? Or is it just a beautiful byproduct of our creative minds going wild? In the off hours? As usual with the brain, the answer is probably both. Nature's like that. Efficient and extra at the same time. And here's something cozy to think about. Your inner soundtrack can become a kind of comfort. Ever hum a song softly under your breath when you're nervous? Or quietly sing to yourself when you're alone? That's your brain reaching for its own emotional first aid kit, a melody to hold on to, a rhythm to keep you steady. There's something deeply human about that, isn't there? No other species, as far as we know, walks around with fully produced soundtracks rolling through their heads while they brush their teeth or fold laundry. Just us, making our own noise in the quiet. And let's not even start on the random little phrases that pop up. You ever remember something embarrassing from 10 years ago and suddenly hear yourself saying it in your mind's voice like it just happened? Fun times. Thanks, brain. Really appreciate that. But that's all part of the theater, isn't it? The images, the spaces, the voices, the noises, they're all part of this elaborate performance happening behind your forehead. And the audience? Just you, the critic, the dreamer, the late-night traveler wandering the sleepy halls of memory and imagination. So next time a random song pops into your head at bedtime, don't fight it. Let it play. Maybe hum it softly. Maybe tap your fingers along to the beat on the edge of the blankets. You might be surprised where that little melody takes you, what memory it leads to, what forgotten place it unlocks. After all, isn't that what good cinema does? It brings you places you didn't expect, even if those places are just the quiet corners of your own imagination, wrapped in warm blankets with nothing but the whisper of an old song to guide you home. By now, you might be starting to notice something about all of this imagery, about the rooms, the sounds, the flashes of strange places and voices. None of it is random. It feels random when you're brushing your teeth or staring at the ceiling. But behind the curtain, there's a kind of secret architect at work. Let's talk about that architect for a second, because you've met them before. It's you. But it's not exactly the everyday, laundry folding, email answering version of you. It's that other part, the one that comes alive at 3 a.m. when you can't sleep. The you that remembers the weird things, the awkward things, the beautiful little fragments of your life that never made it onto Instagram. And here's the twist. That version of you doesn't think in sentences or spreadsheets. It thinks in pictures, in feelings, in scenes. It speaks fluent cinema, and it's been directing strange little short films inside your mind for as long as you've been alive. Want an example? Ever had a moment where a smell brings back a memory so sharp you could practically reach out and touch it? Maybe the scent of fresh bread sends you hurtling back to a childhood kitchen. Or the smell of old books brings back a memory of a school library you forgot existed. That's not magic. It's just your brain cross-wiring senses and memory, layering one on top of the other, like overlapping transparency sheets. Mainstream. Fact time. Psychologists have a name for this. It's called associative memory. Your brain doesn't store things like a filing cabinet. It stores them like a tangled ball of Christmas lights. Smells, sounds, images, feelings, they're all tangled together. And one little tug on the right thread can light up the whole mess in an instant. Now for the fringe. Some researchers believe that these mental tangles might be the reason we evolved the ability to dream in the first place. Dreams help your brain reorganize the attic, so to speak, letting you untangle emotional memories from sensory ones, cleaning up the shelves of your mind while you sleep. Weird dreams? Just the night janitor doing some heavy lifting while you're out cold. But of course, no one fully agrees on why we dream. Some say it's just random neural static. Others argue that it's essential for emotional regulation, creativity, or even problem solving. And honestly, I kind of like not knowing. Makes bedtime feel more mysterious. And speaking of mystery, have you ever noticed how completely unrelated memories will sometimes mash together in your imagination? You might think of your childhood dog and suddenly remember the wallpaper in your aunt's living room. What do those things have to do with each other? Nothing. Except that, at some forgotten moment, your brain filed them together, like a sleepy librarian putting Shakespeare next to a box of crayons by accident. Or maybe not by accident at all. Ever heard of synesthesia? It's a rare condition where people's senses cross over. They might see colors when they hear music, or taste flavors when they read words. And here's the wild part. Even if you don't have synesthesia, your brain does this all the time, just in smaller ways. You might think of a color when you remember a sound, or feel warmth when you remember a hug. Your whole mental theater is stitched together by associations like these, half deliberate, half accidental, all completely yours. Want something stranger? Your brain doesn't always wait for sleep to start mixing things up. Daydreaming is like the waking version of dreaming, and it works on the same principles. Take a little memory from here, a sound from there, a weird idea from somewhere else, and boom, you've got a 3-minute mental vacation in the middle of math class or a boring meeting. Of course, daydreams don't always make sense. Sometimes you imagine yourself riding a horse through a shopping mall, or having an argument with a cartoon character. That's just your brain flexing its creative muscles. Honestly, I think of it like brain yoga. Weird, bendy, sometimes uncomfortable, but strangely satisfying afterward. Academic debate. Time. Neuroscientists are still arguing over whether daydreaming is a sign of mental distraction or advanced creativity. Some studies show that frequent daydreamers actually do better on certain types of creative problem-solving tasks. Others argue it's just procrastination in disguise. Personally, I think it's both. Your brain's not wasting time. It's stretching, preparing, generating weird little sparks that might turn into something beautiful later. And those strange, fragmented images that float past your mind's eye late at night, those are just drafts, sketches, your imagination doodling on the margins of your consciousness while you drift toward sleep. Want a trick? Next time you're lying in bed and your mind starts to wander, follow it. Don't pull yourself back to focus. Let it drift. Follow the thread of that weird remembered song, or that scene of a childhood park, or that moment where someone smiled at you in a way you never quite forgot. Those threads lead somewhere, not always to meaning, but definitely to softness. To the gentle fuzziness of a sleepy brain making itself comfortable before the lights go out. And isn't that nice to know? Even when everything else feels chaotic, your mind still knows how to wander home, trailing memories and colors and weird little echoes like breadcrumbs, leading you softly to sleep. Okay, we've walked through the attic of your memory. We've visited the secret cinemas. We've wandered the corridors of imaginary rooms, floated with songs, and let random fragments of old moments drift past like lazy clouds on a summer afternoon. But now we're going to follow one of the strangest threads of all. Faces. It's weird, right? You can forget someone's name, forget what you had for lunch yesterday, forget where you put your keys, but faces, they stick. You can close your eyes right now and see the faces of old friends, exes, teachers, people you barely talk to. In high school, that one cashier at the grocery store who always looked vaguely annoyed. It's like your brain has this weird secret portrait gallery hidden in storage, ready to go at a moment's notice. Why? Turns out, your brain has dedicated hardware for faces. Literally. There's a part of your brain called the fusiform face area, tucked in behind your ears, whose entire job is recognizing and remembering faces. It's like a bouncer standing at the door of your memories, letting important faces pass the velvet rope. Ah, yes, childhood best friend? Right this way. Weird kid who sat next to you in 3rd grade. Yeah, you're on the list. Mainstream fact time. Studies show that we're incredibly good at recognizing faces, even after years or decades. Even if someone's hair changes or they age, That basic facial pattern gets burned into your mind like a brand. And sometimes, your brain will even recognize a face in things that aren't faces at all. Ever seen a face in a power outlet or a cloud? That's called pareidolia, and your brain does it constantly because it's obsessed with finding faces wherever. It can dot now for the fringe. Some dream researchers suggest that the reason we see so many strangers in dreams, people we've never consciously met, is because your brain is constantly absorbing and filing away every face you've ever seen, even in passing. Walked past someone on the street 10 years ago? Congratulations, they might show up as the weird waiter in your next dream. Your subconscious is like a casting director with unlimited extras on call. And here's where it gets really weird. Have you ever dreamed of a person you don't recognize, but who feels familiar anyway? Like you should know them, even though you don't? That's your brain blending features, taking parts of real people and stitching them together into new characters. The subconscious equivalent of those automatic photo collages your phone makes. When you're not paying attention, here's a strange academic debate for you. Some psychologists believe that your ability to remember faces is tied to empathy. Better you are at recognizing and remembering faces, the better you might be at reading emotions, interpreting social cues, and connecting with people. It's not just about visual memory, it's about emotional memory. Recognizing someone's face means recognizing how they made you feel. And what about faces from the past? Ever had that random ex or old crush pop into your mind's eye, completely uninvited? Or someone you barely knew, but who once said something that stuck with you forever? Those appearances aren't random. They're bookmarks. Emotional sticky. Notes your brain left behind, reminding you that even brief encounters can leave fingerprints on your memory dot. And then there's the phenomenon of face blindness, or prosopagnosia. Some people, due to genetics or brain injury, literally can't recognize faces, not even their own reflection sometimes. But here's the twist. Even people with face blindness can sometimes feel familiar energy from someone, even if they don't consciously recognize them. It's like the emotional part of memory finds ways to work around the visual part. When it needs to, the brain, clever little mischief maker that it is, always finds back doors. Now let's pull this into the sleepy, cozy zone. Why does this matter for you, lying here, drifting towards sleep? Because those flashes of faces you sometimes see behind your closed eyelids, half recognized, half forgotten, are connections. They're the living scrapbook of everyone who's ever drifted across your life, important or not, permanent or temporary. A whole constellation of human contact, drifting across your mental sky like distant satellites. Next time one of those faces floats by smiling or serious, familiar or strange, just let it pass. Don't try to grab it or hold on to it. Just watch. They're not here to startle you or haunt you. They're here as gentle reminders that you've been seen in this world. You've looked into the eyes of strangers and friends, and you've been part of their world, even if only for a moment. That's a beautiful kind of intimacy, soft and quiet, glowing faintly in the corners of your mind, like the last few embers of a campfire before dawn. And as you drift deeper, remember, your brain's portrait gallery is open all night, lights dimmed, velvet ropes lifted. Everyone's invited, and you're the only one who gets to walk those silent halls. Not bad for an imagination that never quite clocks out for the night. Now let's take this little journey to a different place, one that isn't a room or a face or even a song. Let's talk about conversations. You know, those quiet little arguments or dialogues you find yourself rehearsing when you're lying awake at night, that I know you know exactly what I mean. That it's 1 a.m., you're trying to fall asleep, and suddenly you're back in that conversation from 3 years ago, thinking of what you should have said. Or maybe you're inventing a conversation that hasn't even happened yet. A future meeting with someone important. A confrontation you're nervous about. Or even something silly, like practicing what you'd say if someone asked you about your favorite movie. And you can hear it all their voice. The whole thing like a weird one-person radio drama playing in your head. Why does this happen? Why does the brain love running these imaginary social simulations? Mainstream fact. Psychologists call this inner speech or self-talk. And get this, it's totally normal. In fact, the brain regions involved in producing speech light up whether or not you're actually speaking. You don't need to use your mouth. Your brain is ready to rehearse with or without it. Thank you very much. What's fascinating is that this inner dialogue is often tied to your sense of self. The conversations you replay aren't random. They're usually connected to moments of personal significance, arguments, confessions, moments you want to redo, or events you're nervous about. Your mind uses these silent rehearsals as a way to process emotions, sharpen responses, or just prepare for the unknown. And here's a cool fringe fact. Some researchers believe that humans developed inner speech as a kind of internal rehearsal studio for survival. Imagine you're a prehistoric human needing to convince someone not to steal your mammoth meat. Practicing that argument ahead of time could have been the difference between dinner and disaster. Modern version? Practicing what you're going to say in a job interview or while ordering something weirdly complicated at a cafe. Same mechanism. Slightly fewer mammoths. But of course, your brain doesn't always behave itself, does it? Sometimes it just loops the worst possible versions of those conversations. The embarrassing slip-ups. The weird moments when you said something awkward at a party or mispronounced someone's name. Why does it do that? Well, part of it is your brain's negativity bias. Evolution wired us to remember bad or awkward moments more clearly, because long ago, messing up could have been dangerous. Forgetting where that saber-toothed tiger lives? Bad news. Remembering that embarrassing joke you told at your cousin's wedding? Annoying, but harmless. Same wiring. Slightly fewer tigers. Now, here's the academic debate. Is this constant replaying of conversations helpful, or is it just mental clutter? Some psychologists argue that rehearsing future conversations can reduce anxiety and improve outcomes. Others say that overthinking social moments just makes us more anxious. As usual with brains, it's a little of both. Helpful in small doses. Annoying when it's 3 a.m. and you're arguing with someone who isn't even there. But don't worry, there's a gentle trick to handle it. Narrate it. Seriously. Next time your mind starts playing that weird social simulation, gently tell yourself, "Oh look, it's just my brain doing rehearsals again." That's okay. By naming it, you give it less control. It becomes like a kid putting on costumes in the living room. Harmless. Kind of funny. Even, and let's be honest, sometimes those imaginary conversations are funny. Ever think of the perfect comeback way too late? Like 5 years too late? It's like your brain runs a late-night talk show in the background with an endless highlight reel of you being clever after it. Would have been useful. Classic brain. Always arriving fashionably late. But here's the cozy part. These nighttime conversations are also a sign that you care. You care about how you come across to others. You care about relationships. You care about connecting, communicating, being understood. And isn't that kind of beautiful? Even when you're alone, your mind is busy reaching outward, practicing the art of being human. Want one last strange fact before we drift a little deeper? Studies show that people who engage in regular inner speech tend to have better emotional regulation overall. It's like having your own built-in counselor, sitting on a tiny chair inside your head, saying, "Let's talk this through." And while that inner counselor might not always have perfect advice, they're doing their best with the material they've got. So next time your mind starts replaying old conversations, don't fight it. Let the dialogue unfold. Let the voices of old friends or future strangers murmur softly through your imagination. After all, they're not here to argue. They're just echoes, rehearsals, drafts of stories that may or may not ever be spoken aloud. And in this quiet space, lying here with the hum of the fan and the soft weight of blankets over you, all those inner voices start to blend, soften, and eventually quiet down, not because they've run out of things to say, but because they've done their job. You've been seen, heard, understood, even if only by yourself. Sleep is waiting, and the conversations can wait until tomorrow. All right, by now, you've probably noticed something else about the strange way your mind works at night. It's not just memories or conversations, or old faces popping up like unexpected guests at a dinner party. It's places you haven't thought about in years. The playground where you skinned your knee when you were 6. That weird convenience store with the sticky floor and the buzzing neon light. A random hotel room from a vacation you barely remember. These places drift back uninvited, like soft echoes of old chapters you thought were long closed. Why does this happen? Mainstream fact time. It's called spatial memory, and it's handled by a part of your brain called the hippocampus. Fun name, important job. The hippocampus is basically your brain's cartographer, quietly making maps of everywhere you've been since you were born. It doesn't just remember the places, it remembers how you felt in those places, like an emotional GPS tagging every spot with invisible post-it notes. This is where you felt safe. This is where you were embarrassed. This is where you laughed so hard your face hurt. Here's the fun part. Even if you consciously forget a place, your hippocampus doesn't. That's why sometimes, in dreams or half sleep, your mind will conjure up the exact pattern of tiles in your old kitchen or the scratchy carpet in your first apartment. Little details you don't even realize you remember stored, like dusty books on a forgotten shelf. And now for the fringe. Some researchers believe that your sense of self is partly built from these maps. Who you are isn't just memories of people, it's also the places you've carried inside you, stitched together like a patchwork quilt of sidewalks, bedrooms, train stations, and favorite benches. You are, in a way, a walking atlas of everywhere you've ever been. Think about that for a second. You don't just visit places, you collect them. Even the embarrassing ones. Even the boring ones. Even that weird gas station bathroom on that road trip where the soap dispenser didn't work. They're all in there, archived like artifacts in a personal museum no one else gets to tour. Here's something else strange. Ever had a dream about a place that doesn't exist, but feels like it does? Maybe a combination of your grandma's kitchen and your middle school cafeteria, with an escalator thrown in for no reason? That's your brain remixing old spatial memories into new, custom-made locations. You're basically dreaming in Minecraft creative mode, building new spaces out of old emotional bricks. And it gets weirder. There's evidence that even imaginary places, like fictional worlds from books or movies, can get tangled up with real memories. Ever dreamed about Hogwarts mixed with your local grocery store? No shame here. Happens to the best of us. Your hippocampus doesn't care about copyright infringement. It's just here to build you cozy, strange, sometimes hilarious dreamscapes out of whatever material is lying around. Here's where it gets personal. You probably have a safe place tucked somewhere deep in your mind. A bedroom from childhood. A favorite park. The corner of a library where you once hid to read alone. These places tend to surface when you need comfort, like your brain reaching into the back of the closet to pull out an old sweater that still fits just right. No matter how much time passes, that place is yours. Nobody else's. Just like no one else can dream exactly your dreams, no one else walks those internal corridors with the same keys you do. Want something even stranger? Some neuroscientists think that dreams about familiar places might be the brain's way of testing your internal map, running diagnostics like, yep, Still remember the smell of that bus stop. Like your hippocampus doing little maintenance routines while you're off chasing imaginary plot twists. And of course, here's the academic debate. Do dreams actually help maintain memory, or are they just random static? Some studies suggest that people who dream about specific places tend to have better recall of real-world spatial tasks later on. Other scientists argue that's a coincidence. Personally, I like the idea that dreaming is just your brain's version of doodling on the edges of its old blueprints, adding details, sketching new staircases, building spiral towers for no particular reason except that it can dot. So, what's the takeaway here as you drift deeper into sleep? Every strange hallway your mind conjures at night, every door that opens into the wrong room, every impossible elevator leading to nowhere. They're all just pieces of you rearranged into a sleepy puzzle. You don't have to solve it. Just walk through. Explore the rooms with curiosity. Notice the weird wallpaper choices your brain makes when no one's watching. And when you wake up tomorrow, remember, you've carried worlds inside you all along. Quiet little cities only you can visit. Homes made of memory and imagination. Soft, glowing streetlights on the roads you forgot were there. That's not just dreaming, that's architecture. Now we drift into something even stranger than memories, or places, or familiar faces. Objects, things, random little items that don't seem important, until they pop into your head right as you're trying to sleep. You've had this happen. Out of nowhere, your brain decides to show you the image of that weird toy you lost as a kid, or a key you once found on the ground and never knew where it belonged, or that coffee mug your favorite teacher used every day that said something corny, like, "World's okayest teacher." Why these objects? Why now? The answer, weirdly enough, has to do with how your memory works like a network. Objects get attached to events. Events get attached to people. People get attached to emotions. And suddenly, your brain is pulling up a broken wristwatch from middle school just because you happened to think about peanut butter 30 seconds earlier. It's chaos, but it's also beautiful. Mainstream fact time. Memory researchers have something they call the associative network model. Basically, your memories are stored like a giant web of interconnected concepts. That's why one random word or thought can lead to another, like tripping on a shoelace and falling into a completely different part of your memory attic. One random smell or color can drag a whole box of unrelated memories into the room with you. Now here's where it gets fringe. Some dream theorists suggest that objects appearing in dreams or popping into your half-sleep are like anchors, emotional bookmarks. They're not there because they're important as objects, but because of the feelings they're attached to. That key you found? Maybe it reminds you of a summer when everything felt new and mysterious. That old stuffed animal? Maybe it brings back the feeling of being safe, when bedtime meant adventure stories and warm blankets instead of weird emails and group chats. Even stranger, neuroscientists have studied how the brain sometimes misfiles objects in memory. You might remember an item perfectly, but forget where or when it belonged. That's why dreams often feature floating objects: a bicycle in your living room, a mailbox on your kitchen table, a grandfather clock standing in the middle of a forest. Your brain doesn't always keep track of where things go. It just knows. They matter. Somehow. Ever wonder why those forgotten objects feel weirdly important when they surface at night? It's because deep down, you know they're little pieces of unfinished stories. The rubber ball you never found again. The book you borrowed but never returned. The necklace someone gave you, now lost in some old drawer. These are not just things, they're emotional fossils. Tiny echoes of who you were at the time you knew them. Here's a fun one for you. Phantom objects. Sometimes your brain will invent items that never actually existed, but feel completely real. You might swear you owned a toy shaped like a dinosaur wearing sunglasses, only to realize it never existed outside of some half-formed childhood dream. Your brain just made it up, and it gave it to you like a souvenir from a vacation you don't remember taking. And then there's the emotional weight of seemingly ordinary things. Why does a broken pencil you used on a test suddenly come back to you while falling asleep? Because the brain's memory system isn't organized like a file cabinet. It's more like a messy garage. Stuff gets piled up, memories overlap, objects carry strange emotional tags, and you don't always get to choose what floats to the top when you close your eyes at night. Now, for the academic debate. Do objects and dreams mean anything? Classic Freudian psychologists would tell you, absolutely everything's a symbol of something else. Modern cognitive scientists? They're more likely to say, nah, it's probably just random memory soup. As usual, reality's probably somewhere in between. Some objects are symbols. Others are just emotional lint sticking to the corners of your brain. But here's the nice part. You don't have to solve the puzzle. You don't have to analyze why that particular toy truck showed up in your imagination tonight. Let it drift. Let it float by like a leaf on a quiet stream. The object isn't here to demand answers. It's here like an old postcard from a friend you haven't seen in a while, arriving without a return address, just saying, remember this? Want a cozy trick to help you fall asleep? Next time your brain throws a random object at you, a flashlight, a chair, a tiny marble, turn it into a story. Why is that marble here? Maybe it's magic. Maybe it's the key to a secret door in some dreamscape you haven't visited yet. Give the object a purpose, even if it's ridiculous. Let your imagination wander with it, like building a tiny bedtime adventure just for you, because in this space between waking and dreaming, you get to be both the librarian and the author. You choose which memories get dusted off, which objects get new stories, which forgotten moments get another life under. The soft hum of your fan and the blanket pulled up under your chin. Not bad for someone who just wanted to take a nap, huh? And now, let's drift somewhere even deeper. Not memories, not places, not objects, something stranger. Voices. You know the ones I'm talking about. Not the loud, obvious ones. The soft echoes. The almost whispers. Sometimes it's your own voice. Other times, it's someone else's. Maybe a friend. Maybe a family member. Maybe someone you haven't heard from in years. They show up uninvited, gently talking, repeating phrases, like echoes in a hallway with no walls. Why does the brain do that? Well, here's your mainstream fact. Hearing internal voices in half-sleep isn't weird at all. In fact, it's part of something called hypnagogic hallucinations. Sounds fancy, right? But really, it's just the brain easing out of waking mode into sleep mode, like a theater crew slowly lowering the lights. The stage is still set, the audience is still there, but now strange little rehearsals start happening in the background. And sometimes, those rehearsals are voices. What's really interesting is that your brain stores voices, like audio files on an old, slightly scratched CD. You don't just remember what someone looked like, you remember the texture of their voice, their accent, the way they laughed at bad jokes, or the way they said your name when they were annoyed. And for reasons science still doesn't fully understand, these recordings like to play themselves, right? When you're trying to fall asleep. Here's the fringe part. Some dream researchers believe that these voices aren't random. They're selected by your subconscious for emotional reasons. Maybe that teacher's voice pops up because you admired them, or because you wanted their approval. Maybe that one person who embarrassed you in middle school suddenly says something awkward in your imagination because your brain is running a quiet emotional diagnostics check. Like, hey, have we processed this yet? No? Okay, just checking. Stranger still, Some people hear the voices of people they've never met constructed by the imagination, stitched together from snippets of overheard conversations, movie characters, or that random podcast you forgot you listened to while folding laundry last week. The brain's basically a DJ, mixing sounds in the background of your consciousness without permission or playlist. Want a cool psychological trick? If a voice starts looping and you don't like it, you can change it. Seriously, imagine the voice being played through a funny filter, like a helium balloon or a robot. Give that annoying memory a silly sound effect, and suddenly it's not so powerful anymore. Your brain stage, your rules. Change the narrator if you don't like the story. Here's where it gets cozy. Sometimes the voices aren't annoying at all. Sometimes they're comforting. Maybe it's the voice of someone who once told you everything would be okay. Maybe it's a parent softly saying your name. Maybe it's a friend telling you a joke you completely forgot until that moment. And even though it might feel random, it's not. It's your mind, gently wrapping soft threads of old kindness around you like a blanket you didn't realize was still in the closet. Academic debate time. Are these voices just random brain static? Or do they serve a function? Some scientists argue that hypnagogic voices help the brain process language and emotional experiences. Others think they're purely incidental, just the neural circuits cooling down for the night, like the gentle clicking of an old radiator before it settles into silence. But the coolest part? The fact that you get to listen in. Most people don't even notice how often this happens because they're too busy scrolling or worrying or rushing through bedtime. But right here, right now, you're paying attention. You're noticing. You're sitting quietly at the edge of your mind, listening to the echoes of your own life in soft surround sound. Ever notice how sometimes a voice says exactly what you need to hear, right when you're drifting off? It might just be your subconscious delivering little messages, hidden like fortune cookies tucked between folds of thought. You're doing fine. It's okay to rest now. Tomorrow will be easier. And here's a weird one. Sometimes the voice is you, talking to yourself, comforting yourself, arguing with yourself, practicing for tomorrow's challenges, or just narrating random nonsense. Because let's be honest, your brain likes to stay busy, even when it should be napping. Like a tired cat on a WINDOWSILL dot. So here's the gentle invitation. Next time a voice visits you before sleep, don't fight it. Don't chase it away. Just listen. Let it talk. Let it be ridiculous or kind or awkward or funny. Let it be part of the great sleepy radio station broadcasting directly from your own brain. Because in the soft static of those voices, you're not just hearing echoes, you're hearing yourself. And right now, your only job is to relax, breathe, and listen to the quiet hum of the brain doing exactly what it was designed to do. Wander, wonder, and keep you company in the softest way possible. And now we drift into something even softer, even stranger, the way your brain forgets things right before you fall asleep. You know that moment when you're almost there, half in, half out, and you suddenly forget what you were thinking about 5 seconds ago? It's like someone just gently pulled the bookmark out of your thoughts and set it aside. You weren't finished, but it doesn't matter anymore. Sleep is gently erasing the blackboard while you're still writing on it. This little trick of the mind even has a name. Sleep onset amnesia. Sounds dramatic, doesn't it? Really, it's just your brain flipping switches, moving files, and preparing to shut down certain systems for the night, like a quiet librarian turning off lamps one by one in a massive, endless library. Here's your mainstream fact. During the transition into sleep, your short-term memory kind of slips. Not because anything's broken, but because your brain is prioritizing what's worth saving. And honestly, half the stuff we think about before bed isn't worth much anyway. Like that argument you had with the toaster earlier, or the weird way that one street lamp flickered. Sleep steps in and says, "Nope, don't need that. Let's file it under forget this immediately." Here's something fringe for you. Some researchers believe that this act of forgetting might actually help us consolidate the memories that do matter. By clearing out mental clutter, your brain gives more room to the meaningful stuff, like how you learned something interesting today, or remembered someone you love. It's like deleting blurry photos from your phone to make room for the good ones. And it's not just about forgetting ideas, it's about forgetting words. Ever been falling asleep and found yourself halfway through a thought and suddenly can't remember what word you were going to use? It's like walking into a room and forgetting why you came in, but for language. A lovely little glitch that means, hey, time to stop thinking so hard now. Want an even weirder one? Sometimes your brain repeats thoughts right before sleep, like it's stuck on a broken record. A sentence will start over and over again, never quite finishing. This is called cognitive looping, and it's basically your brain's equivalent of buffering. Don't worry, it's not broken. It's just running background updates. Now for the debate. Is this memory slipping a feature or a bug? Cognitive. Scientists argue both sides. Some say it's evolutionary efficiency. Why waste storage on random pre-sleep nonsense? Others argue that it might be an accidental byproduct of how we developed complex thought in the first place. Personally, I think it's charming. Your brain is basically saying, "She, that's enough words for today. Let's do dreams instead." But here's the cozy truth behind all this forgetting. Not everything needs to be remembered. Not every thought deserves to follow you into the next day. Some ideas are just meant to exist for a moment, and then fade like ripples in a pond after. You throw a pebble. Beautiful, brief, and then dash gone. Ever think about how nice that is? The ability to let go of thoughts. Like opening your hand and watching a balloon drift into the sky, knowing you don't need to chase it. That's what your brain is doing right now, lightening the load, unclenching the mental fist, turning down the volume. And sometimes, that's when the best ideas float by. The sleepy, half-finished thoughts that don't make sense, but feel oddly true. Things like, maybe stars are just old campfires in the sky. Or, what if rain smells different on Tuesdays? Utter nonsense, but in that lovely in-between place. Nonsense can feel like poetry. So here's your permission slip. If you need one, not every thought has to be finished. Not every idea has to be clever. Not every plan needs closure before sleep. Sometimes, forgetting is the gift that lets dreaming begin. Like someone quietly turning the page to the next chapter of a story you don't have to write tonight. And, right now, that next chapter is already waiting for you. Soft, warm, and wordless. You don't have to remember this moment. You just have to feel it. Let's drift somewhere softer now. Somewhere the light barely touches. Not memories, not faces, not objects or voices. Just feelings. And not the loud ones either. Not heartbreak or excitement or embarrassment. I'm talking about the quiet ones. The ones that sit in the corners of your mind like sleeping cats, barely moving, but undeniably there. Those little feelings you don't have names for. That soft ache behind the ribs when you remember someone you miss, but don't talk to anymore. That distant sense of wonder when you look at the stars and feel like maybe, just maybe, you almost understand the whole universe. But then it slips away before you can hold it. Why do those feelings show up at night? It's because, brace yourself. For this one, a part of your brain that controls rational thought, it starts to power down before everything else. That's why your thoughts before sleep often feel like whispers through fog. The logical voice takes a coffee break, and the emotional one steps forward in its socks, saying, "Right, what were we feeling about that old friend again?" Mainstream fact for you. Emotional processing during sleep is a real thing. Your brain, especially during certain sleep stages, replays emotionally loaded memories, not to torture you, but to make sense of them. It's like going over a messy room with soft lighting and deciding, okay, keep this, donate that, let's fold that weird sweater properly for once. Fringe idea time. Some psychologists argue that those strange feelings at night, those ones that don't even have names, are ancient emotional echoes. Leftovers from emotional instincts we evolved before we even had complex language. Imagine feelings that humans developed long before we could talk about taxes or deadlines. Things like longing, wonder, quiet dread, peaceful awe, emotional fossils, buried in the sand of your subconscious. And here's the debate. Are these quiet feelings useful? Some neuroscientists say yes, that processing subtle emotions helps us develop emotional intelligence. Others shrug and say, who knows? Maybe the brain's just doing a soft reboot, like restarting your Wi-Fi router at 2 a.m. But honestly, I think those unnamed feelings are where the real treasure is. It's one thing to feel happy or sad. Those are easy, big words. But those tiny feelings, the weird little ones, those are like keys to secret rooms you didn't know were part of your mental house. Places full of old stories, untold adventures, little personal myths you never wrote down. Ever catch yourself feeling nostalgic for a moment you know didn't actually happen? That's emotional blending. The brain's way of remixing memories with dreams, with feelings, with things you wish had happened. It's messy. It's beautiful. It's like watercolor painting on wet paper edges blur, colors. Mix, meaning leaks everywhere. And that's what makes it yours. Want a trick? If you feel a strange, quiet emotion before sleep that you can't name, don't force it. Don't try to explain it like a scientist poking at a jellyfish with a stick. Just sit with it. Name it. Whatever you want. Maybe you call it star thought. Maybe warm forget. Maybe midnight soft. It doesn't matter. It's your feeling. No one else's. And here's a sweet one to fall asleep to. Those little, unnamed feelings often show up before dreams start. They're like the mood music playing softly before the movie begins. A kind of emotional overture before the real dreaming kicks in. And remember this, feelings don't have to make sense to be real. They don't have to be explained, organized, solved, or dissected. Some feelings are just there to exist, like wildflowers growing out of sidewalk cracks. No one planted them. They just showed up because they could. And you get to notice them before sleep, quietly blooming for no reason other than being got. So here you are, wrapped in a blanket of half-memories, soft voices, scattered objects, and these strange little feelings, all floating around like tiny planets orbiting the star of your sleeping mind. And right now, all you have to do is float with them. You don't have to solve. You don't have to answer. You don't have to label. Just drift. Just be, and let the next layer of dreaming rise up to meet you. And now we arrive somewhere strange, but familiar. Not thoughts, not objects, not even feelings this time. What's left? The body itself. It's funny how we think of sleep as something that happens to the mind, but your body is part of this. Slow, beautiful collapse into softness too. And just like your thoughts scatter like birds before sleep, your muscles one by one start letting go of their grip on the day. It usually starts with the face. The little muscles around your eyes that you don't even notice when you're awake. They relax first. Your jaw may be clenched all day. Right now, drooping open like a sleepy cat's paw, not caring if you look dignified or ridiculous. Doesn't matter. You're alone here. You're safe. Here's the mainstream fact. When you fall asleep, your body's motor system disconnects from your conscious awareness. It's not broken. It's a feature. It's why you can dream about running a marathon while lying completely still, like a noble potato. The scientific term is muscle atonia. Your body turns off the light switch for motion, so you don't accidentally act out your dreams. Karate kicking your blanket or yelling about bananas in your sleep. But here's the weird one. Sometimes, as you're falling asleep, your body jolts. You know that feeling suddenly jerking awake, like you just tripped over an invisible wire in the dream hallway. That's called a hypnic jerk, and it's totally normal. Some researchers think it's a leftover reflex from when our ancestors used to sleep in trees. A last little, whoa, don't fall, from the ancient parts of your nervous system. The past saying hello. Even stranger though. Sometimes the body thinks it's falling even if you're lying perfectly still. That falling sensation comes not from motion, but from your brain shutting down parts of its balance system faster than others. It's like a crew turning the lights off in the wrong order, making your mind stumble for a second before catching itself. Want an even softer trick? Try tensing your muscles on purpose for a moment. Curl your toes, squeeze your fists, tighten your shoulders, then slowly release. Feel that melting sensation? That's the doorway to deeper sleep. It's like unlocking another level in a cozy video game you didn't know you were playing. Here's the debate. Is sleep primarily for the mind or the body? Scientists argue about it constantly. Some focus on memory consolidation, others on physical repair. But honestly, it's probably both. And maybe, just maybe, it's also for something more mysterious. Something gentle and ancient. Something like resetting the connection between who you are and where you are. I love that thought. That maybe, when you sleep, your body is saying, hey, we carried you around all day, dealt with your awkward conversations and your weird cravings, handled gravity for you. Can we have a break now? And you get to say, yeah, you've earned it. Right now, your feet don't need to take you anywhere. Your arms don't need to lift anything. Your mouth doesn't need to explain or defend or smile for anyone else. You've arrived, so here's your final invitation before we drift to the very end of this long, soft road. Let your body feel heavy. Not broken, not tired, just heavy in a good way. Like a stone resting in a quiet stream, held by the earth, supported, weightless because of the weight. You don't need to hold anything up anymore. Gravity can do the work now. And you can. Just be. You made it to the edge of this journey, and soon, very soon, you'll drift beyond even this, into the wide, wild ocean of your own dreaming mind. But for now, all you have to do is trust that your body knows how to sleep. It's been practicing since before you were born. It's good at this. Let go of the steering wheel. The road's gone soft beneath you, and there's nowhere else you need to be. Now we're here, right at the edge of dreaming, and everything's gone quiet. It's funny, isn't it? How a simple moment, just lying here, breathing, existing, can feel like drifting through an entire galaxy without ever leaving your pillow. Everything that mattered earlier, it's not here now. It doesn't have permission to follow you into this place. Your heartbeat is slower now. Your breathing has settled into that soft, automatic rhythm that only shows up when you finally stop holding yourself together for everyone else. And your body, well, your body has already started the work of floating away like a leaf on a lake, carried gently by the ripples of sleep itself. Nothing needs to be solved right now. No goals, no clever answers, no urgent replies. Just you lying here, part of the quiet machinery of the universe. Breathing in borrowed stardust. Breathing out soft little secrets into the dark. And that's the thing, isn't it? You are made of that stardust. Everything in you, from your fingertips to your eyelashes, was built by ancient explosions, quiet cosmic chemistry, forgotten rivers. of atoms swirling into shapes that could one day close their eyes like this and drift away. Right now, all of that history is at peace. No need to carry it anymore. You're not a student or a worker or a child or a parent here. You're just a soft animal, falling gently into sleep, like a wave returning to the sea. It came from Dot. So close your eyes, Dot, breathe, Dot, the stars are watching. But they're not in a hurry. Sweet dreams gives end of the script. Sweet dreams.